Awesome.
Could I first request all the participants to um, identify the companies that you are with, as well as your names? Thank you.
Great. All right. So we are at 2 p.m. and we will kick it off with the official kickoff of our webinar today. So I want to first welcome everybody. I really appreciate everybody joining, especially on a Monday afternoon. I will be your host, but I'm also one of the consultants who played a role in conducting this study. The official title for this is the webinar on ecosystem adaptation and nature-based insurance solutions. It's a bit of a mouthful, but we'll try to simplify as much as we can as we go through this presentation. So before we dive into the discussion, I do want to extend my gratitude to the GIZ team for providing this opportunity to conduct this study. I think it's been an awesome learning. Also want to express my appreciation to the PIRA team for their invaluable support for enabling this research to scale to such a large audience. And I also want to acknowledge and thank all the speakers, the contributors, as well as the participants of the interviews whose insights have allowed the study to actually happen. So this is not only an exciting area for the growth of a new insurance solution in the Philippines, but also a great opportunity for the Philippines to sort of lead the way in scaling EbA solutions both regionally and globally. So before we proceed, I just want to make 3 quick best practices to enable a smooth Zoom meeting. The first one is to please keep your microphone on mute when not speaking. If you want to interact, I recommend using the chat box initially before we move to the open forum. And also when asking questions, we would love to, if you could put on your camera and introduce yourself and the company that you belong to so we can capture that accurately. So to kick things off, I want to have a quick icebreaker. It's a Monday morning. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being amazing, how is everybody feeling on this Monday afternoon? So if you could type in the chat box on how you're feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being amazing, I would love to know. I'm personally at an 8, and hopefully I'll be at a 10 by the end of this meeting. So let's hear it from everyone. Great. I'm seeing some good 8s and 9s, which is always a good sign that this audience is energetic, especially because we had, I think it was Holy Week and then a couple of holidays following that. So everybody seems pretty refreshed, hopefully. Awesome. Good to know. So let's move on to quick team introductions. First, I'd like to invite Sir Mitch from the PIRA team to give a quick introduction and a quick shout out to the group today.
Thank you, Milendra. Hi, everybody. I'm Mitch Reliosa, the Executive Director of ERA, and we're very glad to be part of this endeavor, a very important endeavor. I guess I'll talk to you later after this session is finished. Thank you, Milendra.
Thank you so much. Next, I want to invite the GIZ team. Andrea, would you love to have you address the group here?
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea Terran. I am the Principal Advisor of the project Strengthening Disaster Resilience and Risk Mitigation through Ecosystem-Based Planning and Adaptation. And we supported this study. I'm not sure, Belinda, if we go through all the introductions now, but I also will talk about the project and, of course, this scoping study much later on. Welcome, everyone, and thank you from our side for attending.
Thanks, Andrea. At this point, I'll just quickly take over the screen and sort of kick it off for the group here. So could you just verbally let me know when you can see the presentation on your screens?
Yes, we can see.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Great. So we're going to kick it off with the presentation. We've done a quick team introductions. I also want to acknowledge some of our speakers who will be speaking today. They will be giving their introductions as we share their slides. So the first is Sir Roy. He's the president and CEO of One CISP, joining from the Philippines. We have Ms. Shane Bulos, who is the World Food Program CRI specialist. She's working currently, I believe, in the Philippines, but she's based in Rome. We have Piyush Sharma from Swiss Re, the Senior Analytics Manager. We have Anna Sophia, who is an advisor at the GIZ Germany headquarters. And we have Ms. Aryan, who is an NBS domain leader from AXA Climate. So this is just to showcase the broad group of speakers that we have from all across the world. So let's start with the first topic, which is what is eco-based adaptation. And for this, I'll be inviting Ms. Shane to speak to a couple of slides. Ms. Shane, if you could take over and let me know, and I'll be happy to guide the slides as well.
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Melindra. Hi, everyone. I'm Shane Rose Bulos. I am a financial inclusion and climate risk insurance specialist. And hello from Kyrgyzstan. I'm currently here for work. For some of us, ecosystem-based adaptation is a very new concept. So I wanted to first ask what is ecosystem-based adaptation, and of course provide an answer. Well, ecosystem-based adaptation is at the intersection of socio-economic development, climate change adaptation, biodiversity and ecosystem conservation. So it's a strategy that utilizes nature itself for us to adapt to the impacts of climate change. So climate change adaptation, as we know, is employing various strategies, and some of it is pretty prevalent. This is, for example, using infrastructure like dams for us to manage climate change. EbA, on the other hand, leverages the natural functions and services provided by a healthy ecosystem. Example of it is flood protection by mangroves and wetlands, drought mitigation by forests and watersheds, and climate regulation by forests and grasslands. So we'll hear more about these projects from our esteemed speakers later. So in addition to these benefits, ecosystem-based adaptation can also support biodiversity conservation. It improves livelihoods because people are able to retain their sources of income, and it also promotes sustainable natural resource management. So further examples are protecting and managing wetlands, protecting coral reefs, using climate resilient crop varieties, and restoring degraded forests and mangroves. So for me, this ecosystem-based adaptation is all about protecting nature and letting nature protect us. So it's a perfect symbiotic relationship. Next slide, please. Okay. So this we're pretty much familiar of. I know that we have colleagues and we have attendees from Indonesia and Vietnam. In the Philippines, the climate-related losses is pretty significant. So we have incurred 10 billion loss from climate-related hazards in the past 10 years. And the Department of Finance states that climate-related losses makes up to 98% of the country's total estimated losses. For Vietnam, on the other hand, In 2020, they incurred 10 billion loss related to climate impacts, and it's already 3.2% of their gross domestic product. So in the next 30 years, they're forecasting that Vietnam will incur $523 billion of losses related to climate impacts. In Indonesia, on the other hand, the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific shows that they're losing 31.2 billion annually from disasters, and 23.3 billion of it is derived from drought. So we can see that this impacts underscores the urgent need for effective adaptation measures, and ecosystem-based adaptation is one of the most promising strategy that we could employ. So since I've worked in a couple of countries in Africa and Asia on these topics, I would love to hear questions during the session for question and answer. But this ends my my presentation, giving it back to you, Milendra.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate you joining us all the way from Kyrgyzstan. Thank you for taking out the time. Okay, for this part of the webinar, we'll be focusing on some of the research findings in the Philippines. So a couple of focus areas that we looked at as we were thinking about the study was, one, the assessment of the policy landscape to identify which policies could potentially be leveraged to scale or either identify entry points for these solutions in the Philippines. We also looked at some of the gaps that might be existing within the current policy landscape and what might be needed from the regulators in that aspect. The second one was scoping of market practices, trying to understand, what are the other initiatives available globally that we could potentially leverage and learn from that could be either adopted or built on by our local insurance players. The third was the identification of challenges. So this is a completely new space for a lot of us. So there are some challenges to overcome. And this forum actually provides a great opportunity to actually share those with the team, but also secure inputs from the audience here today. The other one was market development insights as to understanding what could be entry points for this solution in the Philippines, and share a few of the good market practices that could enable this product to scale and potentially thrive not just in the Philippines, but also regionally. So in terms of scope, we wanted to make sure that we have a large spectrum of participants contributing to the study. So we spoke to some of our domestic insurers, we spoke to insurance specialists, international insurers, as well as some of the government agency and cooperatives in the Philippines. This slide is to highlight, not just the fact that we spoke to 23 stakeholders who provided insights for the study, but it's also for you to understand, who are the different stakeholders that you may need to connect with, or stakeholders that you may have not already connected with when you're thinking about these solutions. So this is something that will take a collective effort, and this slide was designed to provide those inputs to the audience here today. So what were some of the interview findings from this research? So we looked at a couple of parameters. We looked at awareness, some of the challenges that existed, the support that might be needed by the different agencies, and also get some of the top recommendations from the different contributors to the study. So when we think about awareness, there was a very low awareness about EbA and NBS insurance solutions in the Philippines. Only about 20 to 30% of the participants were actually engaged in developing these solutions. There were a few challenges as well. 80% of the participants that we spoke to surfaced that government support would be crucial for market development. And 70% stated that funding would be a primary barrier to scale the solution locally. Overall, there was collective understanding that there is technical training needed. A lot of the participants felt that they lacked the tools, whether that might be data modeling tools or assessing the risk. It could also include how do we evaluate and put a dollar value on natural assets, was something that had low awareness among the group that we spoke to. And 60% of the participants said that they needed more clarity and ease of use in securing government funding. The two top recommendations that came out of this was participants said that cross-governmental agency support is crucial because we have many agencies currently very active in this space, but there needs to be intergovernmental support to ensure that we are driving towards one action. The second one was identifying additional projects. So essentially building an inventory of projects to scale and also attract funding. There are a few projects that are available regionally, but what was lacking was an understanding of the full scope of the opportunity in the Philippines. So that begs the question of how does EbA solutions actually reduce risk? So if you look at the box on the left, it basically talks about a UN report that said that by investing 6 billion a year globally in nature-based solutions could avoid 360 billion in disaster-related losses in the next 15 years. When we look at this from the Philippines point of view, it basically means that even if we invested less than 1% of the country's GDP, not doing that would result in the country's GDP reducing by 13.6% in the next 15 years. The meta point here is that the benefits of limiting and avoiding damage far outweigh the investment costs. So the more action and the more investments that we do now, that's going to offset some of the risks that the insurance sector would feel in the coming years. So now the question is, what's in it for me, right? At the end of the day, we're running a company, we're running industry. So why should the Philippines in the insurance industry support EbA solutions? So the first reason is the hedging of physical risks. The region sees about 20 typhoons a year annually, hence reducing thus reducing the investment cost over time lowers the payouts for these insurance when you think about the insurance aspect of it. The second one is the high financial upside of reducing the impact of NatCat events. So the Philippines Department of Finance has stated that the country expects losses of over 268 billion over the next 50 years. So it just makes a lot of sense that these solutions can be implemented now. So that reduces that $268 billion figure over the next couple of years. The third is there's strong government backing for NBS solutions. So when we looked at the several policies, there are existing frameworks, roadmaps that are already drafted by the government that emphasize natural capital protection. So this already exists. Another question is how do we leverage these policies and how do we share them more scalably? The fourth is a highly
सेक्टर नेटवर्क का हिस्सा हूं ना उसका वेबिनार
Just a quick note to the participants, if you don't mind putting yourself on mute, that will be super helpful. Appreciate it. The fourth one is highly developed microinsurance market. So currently there are 57.75 million insured lives with premiums growing at 14% annually in the Philippines. I remember 10, 20 years ago, when someone introduced the concept of microinsurance, it would have been a similar conversation where it might be thought as a high-risk market for us to penetrate. But over the last couple of years, we've seen that Philippines has had a very high penetration of microinsurance. So this tells us that there's an appetite for risk products in the Philippines, and it just makes sense that the way the industry supported microinsurance, a similar work stream could be kicked off for EbA solutions as well. The next one is high availability of funds. So this was addressed as a challenge, but what we realized was that currently about $14 billion currently pledged across several initiatives, including agroforestry, mangrove protection, as well as climate change mitigation from both international as well as national resources. So there is funding available. Now the question is, how do we secure that for the insurance sector in scaling and piloting a couple of initiatives? There's also robust support from multilateral banks across the board. So in 2023, the Philippines is actually the beneficiary of a 600 million funding from the World Bank to develop a catastrophe insurance marketplace. So these trends essentially highlight that there is momentum, there is funding coming in. Hence, it's an incentive for the insurance industry to also start supporting EBA. So we looked at the opportunity size. This is a very simplified way of looking at the market, but we try to simplify it just for the audience to understand what could be the potential here. So when we talk about mangroves, the Philippines has the fourth largest mangrove extent globally. The UN estimates that the worth of a mangrove to be anywhere between 33,000 to 57,000 per hectare per year. So if we just do a simple math and just multiply the total mangrove hectares by the average economic value, we come to a sum of about 12.8 billion in total economic value. And if we assume that only 30% of this can be actual value that can be captured, that brings us to a pretty sizable amount of about $4 billion. So that tells you that mangroves do have a dollar figure, a dollar value attached to them. We did a similar work stream with coral reefs, where Philippines has the third largest coral reef in the world, which is about 26,000 kilometers square. And this comes right after Indonesia and Australia in terms of size. We did the same math for corals, and we came up with a number of 101 billion of total capturable value for the Philippines. So apart from the economic value, coral reefs also dissipate about 97% of wave energy. So there's not only an economic value here, but there's also risk mitigation value here that we wanted to highlight for the audience. But there are challenges to overcome. And when we conducted the study, these were the key challenges that came up. So the first one is the high financial risk of EBA solutions. There's a substantial upfront cost, primarily because of the extended execution timelines. So any delays in revenue and the lack of traditional financing mechanisms tend to be a barrier for a lot of the private sector partners to join in or invest. There's also an unstandardized way of pricing natural equity, for example, carbon credits. This differs from country to country, and there are multiple ways of doing it, including valuing mangroves. So there needs to be a standard way that the Philippines needs to adopt for pricing a natural asset. The second one is the lack of government incentives. So this sort of ties to the high financial risk. If you want to incentivize the private sector to join, there needs to be some kind of incentive for them to invest and make that upfront capital investment in these resources. There were also unclear policies on how agencies or private sectors can actually secure finance from these resources. So for example, the Philippine Survival Fund, there was a lack of understanding, can this fund be used for EBA insurance solutions? And there was limited coordination between different agencies. So the one agency doesn't know what the other one is doing, which seemed like a barrier and something that can be addressed fairly quickly. There were limited availability of large projects. When you're thinking about investors, they're looking at large projects, could be multi-year investments that they're looking at. And because we don't have a clear inventory or a pipeline of projects, it makes it really hard to go to private sectors and pitch a large opportunity. There's also no platform for local players. For example, cooperatives might be doing pilot projects, but there's no way to surface that project to the larger audience or the larger insurance sector. Through the interviews, we also realized that there was a lack of tools and technical expertise available. So a lot of our participants shared that local actors lack the tools to actually assess the returns or how to structure this kind of insurance solution. There were also challenges in hiring and training, in mainstreaming this project identification and assessment. So these essentially serve as barriers that I feel we could, as a group, could collectively address through technical working groups and further discussions on this topic. So I did want to touch on the funding resources available in the Philippines, because I personally was surprised that there's a lot of money coming in from different sources, including international and domestic resources. So, for example, you have the Asian Development Bank that has pledged about $250 million in 2022 to support policy-based loans to support adaptation and mitigation. Similarly, we have international governments pledging for promoting biodiversity conservation, climate change mitigation, and things like that. Collectively, this amounts to about $14 billion. So the question becomes of how do we actually get these resources to activate and scale in the Philippines? So as you're thinking about this, I know we have a large diaspora of associations here. So it might be interesting if this team here and this audience here can find, who are the decision makers in these agencies and where can an insurance product or solution be piloted using these funds. So we looked at the policy landscape. What was interesting was that overall, there are several policies that the government and the different regulators have launched. And we tried to summarize some of the linkages to EbA. So when we look at the Climate Change Act of 2009, it actually has some language which basically says that we need to design relevant and appropriate risk sharing and risk transfer instruments. Similarly, the Philippines Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act actually highlights the adopting disaster risk reduction and taking a holistic approach to lessening the impact of environmental disasters. The National Framework Strategy on Climate Change actually talks about prioritizing the protection, management of mangroves, estuaries, coral reefs, and beaches, and consider them as part of key ecosystems that need to be protected. And similarly, there are multiple other policies that exist, including the natural capital accounting, which actually talks about how we can evaluate and put a dollar value on natural capital assets. So this slide is essentially to tell you that there are various policies to promote the adaptation and mitigation efforts. But the challenge now would be, how do we take these existing frameworks? How can the insurance industry take this, leverage it for creating insurance solutions, or also suggest to regulators what policies might be needed? So what can each stakeholder currently do, when we talked about all these solutions? So for regulators, some of the recommendations was to establish a working group or a task force across multiple agencies to spearhead some of the reforms. Another recommendations was to provide, let the regulators also provide some of the training to insurance professionals on ecosystem-based adaptation measures. We learned that there are existing trainings that are available that just potentially just need to be scaled. For development agencies, that they need to provide guidelines outlining best practices and standards for integrating EbA into climate finance and insurance policies. This webinar serves as one of those forums that development agencies like GIZ are spearheading, but they could do more by driving public partnerships and offer opportunities for blended financing as well. Insurance companies play a big role in product innovation. So innovating insurance products that cover risk associated with nature-based solutions could be a key area that insurance companies can look into. Data sharing is important because without good risk data, without good risk modeling information, it will be very difficult for us to actually model these insurance products out and understand what that total economic value as well as risk value is. So data sharing, from insurance companies to local actors as well as government plays a key role in enabling EBA in the Philippines. Another recommendation is for open source training. This is widely available in many resources, but some agencies and some organizations that offer certifications are very expensive. So what we recommend is creating open source trainings. That way you can scale this to a wider audience and a wider group, not just in the Philippines, but also Southeast Asia. Cooperatives play a key role in community development. So facilitating and continuing that community engagement just serves as the best interest for them, but also which will also help scale these insurance solutions, because cooperative members make up a very large percentage of micro insurance customers in the Philippines. Similarly, corporate development authorities and research institutes play a key role in partnering with the government, but also proactively and consistently sharing findings with agencies like PIRA to build knowledge capacity and scale this learning to an audience that's present here today. So those were a few summary examples and a little bit of a flavor of what we found in the research studies. We will be taking this study and putting into a larger report that will be available in a few weeks. With that, I will stop there and hand it over to our speakers, who will be now leading the next part of this webinar, which is our speaker series. So the first speaker for today is Anna Sophia, who is our representative, the GIZ representative from the headquarters in Germany. Anna Sophia, I'd love to invite you on camera and take it away.
Great, thank you so much, Milendra, and happy to start with the next slide. Yes, I'm very grateful that I can be here today and just show some of the entry points and examples in the NBS CDR of AI, like climate and disaster risk, finance and insurance space, and also some observations that we did in our work, or we had in our past work. So I think there are three main entry points that we observe. The first one is ensuring ecosystems against climate risk, and then using the payout for like ecosystem restoration. So if there's a typhoon also damaging, for example, coral reefs or mangroves, then the insurance can actually help rehabilitating those ecosystems. There are some examples. Quite famous is the Quintana Roo coral reef insurance in Mexico, where also Piyush from Swiss Re will talk about a bit. Then there's also the Mesoamerican reef insurance program across several countries, always ensuring the coral reef against hurricanes, and further coral reef insurances, such as in Hawaii, but also now further covering other ecosystems such as mangroves, where also Ariana will talk a bit about. One also emerging area is marine protected area insurance, such as Ariana will talk about the Blue Alliance case in the Philippines and Belize. Then the second entry point is actually like incorporating nature-based solution risk reduction benefits in the insurance pricing. So, for example, using or incorporating the risk reduction benefit of mangroves in the property insurance of nearby hotels. There's one case study, or like one pilot existing, the Risco pilot through the Conservation International, that is looking into how mangrove risk reduction benefits can actually be incorporated in insurance products. And then the third entry point is actually de-risking investments into nature-based solutions by insurance. For example, in I think the Netherlands, Swiss Re had a dike reinsurance or reinforcement project where the insurance actually covered some of the construction or project risks. And then there's also a very innovative new new instrument existing, the CAT wrapper, which was designed by Willis Tower Watson for the blue loan in Belize as part of the Debt for Nature swapped. And yeah, with that, I would go to the next slide, where I very quickly dive into this de-risking investments into nature part. So Belize had yeah, Debt for Nature swapped, as I said, and as part of that, the Nature Conservancy, so TNC, established a subsidiary which gave a blue loan to the government of Belize. And with that blue loan, they could actually yeah, invest in coastal and marine protection. And as Belize is also very vulnerable to climate change and climate hazards, Willis Tower Watson yeah, designed this parametric policy, so parametric insurance, that provides coverage for the blue loan debt payment following a hurricane. So that means that in case of an eligible hurricane event, the government of Belize didn't need to or doesn't need to pay back the blue loan themselves, but rather the payout from the insurance is used to yeah, pay back the loan for a specific time frame. Because of time limits, I'm not gonna go into the details here, but actually it's yeah, quite an interesting example as well. Next slide. Yes, thank you. And then some main observations we also had or yeah, came across in a case study collection that I will also share the link for in the chat in a second. So one is that there are many entry points in the insurance NBS space. So far, a lot has been yeah, focused on coral reefs, but also other ecosystems are gaining yeah, traction, such as mangroves, etc. But to my knowledge, there have not been so many cases or yeah, very successful cases where nature-based solutions risk reduction benefits were actually incorporated in the insurance pricing. So this is for sure an interesting area to follow up. Then also Milendra mentioned that, yeah, the challenges also in financing or coming up with sufficient finance. So we also noticed that identifying a suitable policyholder and then ways to finance insurance premium remain challenging because nature-based solutions or nature is often a public good. So it's not very clear like who's actually responsible to finance the insurance premium. So we had 3 considerations how that can be like overcome. One is that in the pilot stage, often public finance and also technical advisory are key just because it's a very complex field and just to showcase that the solution can actually work. Then nature-based solutions, as also mentioned by Shane, have so many benefits and therefore also quite some areas where revenues could be generated. So for example, carbon credits, but also through sustainable fishery, ecotourism, or also taxes from beneficiaries such as hotels. And if you use those diversified revenue streams, and maybe even bundle them within a trust fund, that can actually help to yeah, generate yeah, sufficient revenue to pay insurance premium. And of course, here also international finance can be part of, such as from like some yeah, international climate funds, for example. And then the last point is engaging local stakeholders is very crucial to yeah, ensure sustainability of the scheme as well. So to yeah, help make them understand why EBA is important, but also why this insurance solution is also beneficial for them, as well as then in the case of, for example, a payout to restore the ecosystems. Yeah, we need the communities also on board. And then the last point is that basic approach has often been like a conventional parametric insurance, which is quite easy to replicate. And then it just needs some innovative yeah, adjustments or also applications. So in the MAR fund example that, I don't know, maybe Ariane will mention quickly, for example, the basis risk is also reduced due to a gridded parametric insurance. And then another yeah, innovative application is this CAT wrapper, for example, in Belize, as I just presented, which helps unlock capital for nature through de-risking debt transactions. Yeah, and with that, I'm happy to hand over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Sophia. We appreciate your inputs. All right, next, I would like to invite Piyush Sharma, who is a Senior Analytics Manager at Swiss Re Australia. So Piyush, please take it away.
Great, thanks, Melinda, and nice to meet everyone this afternoon. So yeah, my name is Piyush Sharma, and I'm from Swiss Re Solutions. So through my talk today, I would like to highlight some of the challenges that exist when addressing the unique requirements of nature-based solutions, and hopefully share with you some of the capabilities that Swiss Re has to help clients manage this, as well as share examples with you on how we've supported nature-based solutions around the world. And this really ties in with Swiss Re's overall mission, which is to make the world more resilient. So if we go to the next slide, I wanted to talk about what different roles insurance and risk transfer can play along with some examples. So firstly, around insights and being able to understand climate risks. Given the unique and new characteristics of nature-based assets, it's important for insurers to understand the relevant risk characteristics and how natural assets interact with the ecosystem to manage the impact from natural hazards such as flooding. Now, given the lack of historical data in this space, there is often a need to develop new models which can provide insights here. And this is an exercise that Swiss Re has conducted globally in certain regions, partnering with universities and to develop new kind of models. The other point I wanted to focus on this slide was around resilience building. And Anna Sophia, did touch on this previously as well. So with nature-based assets, the speed to restoration is vital. And under traditional insurance products, the process of assessing can become quite lengthy. Hence, products which are parametric-based can be a more preferred option. And we'll go into specifics of an example in a few moments. But here, I really want to highlight the product suite that's available within Swiss Re to help build and launch parametric products around the world. So if we go to the next slide, I wanted to talk about some of the challenges nature-based assets pose when it comes to insurability. Now, these are common challenges that we have faced when working with clients in this sector. And I won't talk through all of them, but the two main ones I wanted to highlight was firstly around finding the right policyholder. And this was a topic touched on by the previous speaker as well, but in the context of nature-based solutions, the risk taker is not always a single entity, which really complicates the traditional insurance model. Natural ecosystems often span properties, jurisdictions, and provide benefits to a broad range of stakeholders, including communities, governments, and businesses. So the question really becomes who then takes on the role of a policyholder for a mangrove forest or a watershed. And secondly, on the topic of risk quantification, in the context of nature-based solutions, this becomes quite complex. Traditional insurance models rely on historical data to predict future losses, but ecosystems are dynamic and influenced by many variables. So there is a need to develop new kind of risk rating models which consider the complexity of nature-based assets and how they interact with the rest of the environment. Now, if we go to the next slide, I wanted to talk through some of the common misconceptions we've come across when having conversations with clients in this area. And these really build on the insurability criteria that we talked through earlier. First, there might be a notion that insurance can cover any and all assets, including those based in nature. But the reality is the traditional scope of insurance covers sudden and accidental losses. So when we talk about nature-based assets such as forests, coral reefs, or wetlands, the loss often stems from gradual processes such as erosion, invasive species, or climate change. Now, these themselves are not sudden, but predictable and often preventable, making them less suited to conventional insurance models, but maybe more on the resilience risk management side of things. And secondly, there may be an expectation that the financial benefits from insurance, specifically risk management discounts, can directly fund large-scale resilience projects. But the reality is that these discounts are typically insufficient for such funding. They are more suited to compensating for reduced risk exposure rather than financing proactive resilience measures. You have to remember that the insurance premiums are often set considering the current state of nature-based assets and solutions. So there's not going to be a discount on the premium unless there was some new natural barrier in place. So finally, let's jump to the next final slide where we'll go into a case study. So this is in Quintana Reef in Mexico. So here, TNC and the Swiss Re Foundation initiated a project to protect the reef, which supports marine biodiversity, but is also a linchpin of the local economy due to its role in tourism and fisheries. However, the reef faced significant threats from storms and human activities like uncontrolled coastal development, which led to severe repercussions for the reef and the communities it supported. The primary challenge here was to combat the dual threats of both natural disasters and also human impacts. And this was to preserve the reef's health and the economic stability it provided to the region. So the solution here, we recognize that the healthy coral reefs are crucial for coastal protection and economic sustainability, and a unique insurance product was developed to respond to storm-related damages quickly. Unlike traditional insurance, which relies on post-event assessments, the product here was designed to provide swift release of funds based on a parametric trigger, specifically looking at wind speed data. So when a storm hits, the speeds surpassing a certain threshold, funds are released into the trust, which then support the rapid mobilization of local reef brigades. And these brigades are trained community members ready to carry out immediate reef repair work, illustrating a proactive approach to managing and mitigating natural disaster risk. So, the project's success really led to the expansion of the approach, with governance structures established and reef brigades trained in reef assessment. As of 2020, there was 14 reef brigades set up with over 180 people trained, and they're protecting around 500 kilometers of coastline. So I guess what I'll close on here is the focus here is really on long-term resilience and capacity building. Beyond the financial aspect, the Swiss Re Foundation here has been instrumental in the brigade training and the development of governance structures, which are critical to protecting natural infrastructure, such as reefs. So I'll hand that back to Belendra then.
Thanks, Piyush. Appreciate the insights and very encouraging to see the results of such a product that's already exists in Mexico. So with that, we'll move to our next speaker. Aryan, if you don't mind giving a quick introduction while I just adjust some of the slides, I will reshare, but in the meanwhile, feel free to introduce yourself for maybe a couple of seconds.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Melindra, for readjusting the slides last minute. So hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you. I'm Ariane Kaploun from AXA Climate. AXA Climate is an entity from the AXA Group, but we are focused on climate adaptation with 3 different activities today. Climate insurance with parametric design, just like our Swiss Re colleague explained. Consulting, where we do essentially climate modeling and biodiversity modeling. And finally, training. So today I'm going to share with you a few use cases on nature insurance based on EbA precisely. And timing is perfect. We have back the slides. I will go super fast on this one because I think most of the challenges that have already been highlighted by the previous speakers. What I wanted to share with you is some insights on this big question of, is there really a business model for insuring nature? So as you have seen, there are indeed a lot of complexity. But from our little experience in that sector, we believe that if we find sustainable financial revenue streams that can pay for the insurance over the long run, based on often on private companies, it might work. So those revenue streams can come from the tourism industry, from carbon credits, in particular for mangrove, ecosystem. And of course, for other type of coastal activities that can also finance marine protected areas. And this is a use case that I will share with you just now with Blue Alliance. So if we can jump to the next slide. So Blue Alliance, formerly called Blue Finance, is a manager of marine protected areas all over the world. And one of the first use cases is in the Philippines. And since last year, we have designed for them a cover to protect all the MPA's activity against cyclone risk. So very concretely, what are the key metrics of this insurance program? So for us, it's a small premium, but we tailor it to really fit the needs of the MPA. So the premium is around 25K, the aggregated limit $250,000. And the purpose of this is to cover for revenue loss after a cyclone. So the MPA is living out of ecotourism and sustainable aquaculture based on crab aquaculture. So if there is a cyclone, the insurance would definitely trigger to pay for this revenue loss, to also continue to pay all the people that are employed by the MPA, and also potentially pay back investors, because Blue Finance or Blue Alliance is actually leveraging private finance to have all this new investment, new activities, invested. So they have some BNPP as one of their investors. Mirova used to be one of their investors. So insurance could also pay for that financial debt. Yeah, just before jumping to mangrove, a last word on Blue Alliance. What is interesting is that regarding financing, premium financing, so for the first 2 years, so last year and this year, it's the Howden Foundation who is paying for the insurance, because, you know, it's like the facilitator, the trigger to have this program started. But the way we design the premium, it should be bearable on the long run by the MPA itself. And so the insurance will just become a running cost, you know, as any type of other running cost for the insurance. So let's see what the future comes with, but we hope this will be sustainable over the long run. Next use case is a bit different because it's not in the Philippines, but it's in Mexico. And it really focuses on mangrove. And why I wanted to share that with you today is because this is a community-based mangrove program. So the mechanism could be replicable in the Philippines. So here, there is this community, 150 families. They are living out of mangroves because it's a fishing community. They have developed some ecotourism activities. And since 5 years now, they also benefit from carbon credits. And they are in Yucatan, so quite exposed to cyclone risk. And since last year, we have designed also a similar type of parametric cover to cover all the community's activity against cyclone risk. So here again, the premium is quite small for us. It's a little less than 20K, and the aggregated limit is 100K. But that should be sufficient for the first needs of the community after a cyclone. And what is also interesting is that we were in direct contact with the community. We made different type of structure. Some of them were potentially would trigger less often, but with higher amounts. And they actually choose the covers that will trigger more often with a less important aggregated limit. And here, what is very interesting is that the community is paying for the insurance, but then the premium is repercuted on the carbon credit costs. So in a way, they get reimbursed of the insurance after when the carbon credits are sold. And that makes it sustainable over the long run also. Next slide is a research project. It's not an insurance use case, but it's more research to promote insurance, EbA insurance. So Guy Carpenter is leading this research with the University of Santa Cruz and the researcher Mike Beck, that some of you might know. And he is very concrete because the output of this should showcase how much investing into mangrove could actually reduce cyclone risk. So the objective has been to investigate different of prices with parametric solutions, where one of the scenario is we keep all the mangroves of the Philippines and we test how would be the premium amount. And then we remove all the mangroves and then we evaluate again the exposure of the Philippines and we make a second pricing. So this is still ongoing, but we believe that this result will really be interesting for the whole market. And finally, I think I've just on the last slide, if we, Melindra, if you can change the slide. Yeah, I just would like to end by sharing also our role as an insurance company, as actually Melindra presented in the beginning of this webinar. So what we've been doing is, of course, feasibility studies on insurance innovation, because as you have understood, of course, it's very challenging to find the right stakeholders, the right insurance scheme, identify the premium mechanism, etc. So feasibility studies is really the first step to be successful in this innovative program. But then there is also the other part, working a bit more upstream of climate risk. And this is also why at AXA Climate we've started to do consulting to promote NBS investment. So what we can do today and what we do with some of our clients is climate risk modeling, integrating future scenarios where we can prove or showcase how ecosystem-based adaptation is really working. We can help private sector or public also sector identify the right adaptation strategies, and we are working on flood risk with many cities over the world. We can of course provide also training, because we have a whole training team, training on climate biodiversity to onboard stakeholders that needs to be onboarded. And we can also work on business models to help make the case for nature conservation. So I stop there and happy to continue the discussion in the next session.
Thank you, Ariane. I appreciate all your partnership over the last few weeks. What's encouraging about this is not only there's a insurance protection aspect to it, but also a financing aspect to it through carbon credits. So making essentially the investment more sustainable. So we'd love to learn more about this during our open forum. With that, I will move to our next speaker, who is a crowd favorite, Sir Roy Miklat from 1CISP. So Roy, welcome to the webinar. If you could please take us through the slides, come on camera and introduce yourself as well. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Next slide, please. I'm Roy Miklat from the One Cooperative Insurance System of the Philippines Life and General Insurance. Basically, the organization serves the cooperatives in the Philippines. So these are some figures that we do, and then we believe that a prosperous, inclusive, and a more resilient Philippines is a cooperative Philippines, because as basically if we cooperate with one another, we reduce more risk. We have 4,695 member cooperatives, and we have about 1.8 million insured individuals, not policies. It's more of warm bodies. Last year, we paid about 632 million benefits. And right now, we have about 4.1 billion pesos in assets and 231.51 million in net surplus. Because we don't call it net income, it's more of surplus. Because this is excess payment of members in their patronage with the cooperative. Next slide, please. This is one of our major initiatives among cooperatives. This is in Mindanao, the southmost island group in the Philippines, and it's one of the most critical areas in our country. It's in Zamboanga City, it's in the Bangsamoro or the Muslim Mindanao area. So we provide insurance for the members of the cooperatives. We support the mangrove growing in the project together with the local government agencies. And there is no international support in this project, or we don't have any reinsurer for this project. So what we do is to absorb all the risk that we provide the cooperative, and we are slowly scaling up this project. And we right now, by the end of this year, we'll be getting out of the bigger area in the peninsula, in the Zamboanga Peninsula. Through our insurance coverage, we provide lower premium for the cooperative in our different products, both life and non-life. And then because we have statutory funds as provided by law, we also provide them funds to secure mangrove seedlings, and hopefully we can establish a mangrove nursery suited for the area, because in the Philippines, not all mangrove species are suitable in the different coastal areas of the Philippines. So we have also to find suitable mangrove varieties that can be grown in the different parts of the coastal areas in the Philippines. So right now, we depend internal funding and support from one CISP and the cooperative, and the internal funds of the cooperative, together with the local government, local agencies like the DENR, Department of Natural Resources, in their respective areas in Zamboanga area. So this is a local initiative of the cooperative and the local agency. The cooperative, these are just based on our experience. This is the thing that we have summarized it very short. For development agencies like GIZ, we have to have information campaign for everyone, have to campaign for EbA, so insurance solutions. As for regulatory framework, it's GIZ can help, just like 15 years ago when they supported the microinsurance framework, regulatory framework, and the government, the insurance companies. And then provide budget allocation for EbA insurance solutions. This is for everyone, that we have to really, if we want to do this, we just have to, this is just not your funds for CSR. It's really a budget to do EbA. And then for insurance companies, for organization, whether it's a cooperative, association, or corporation, to provide as an incentive lower premium for this organization, as well as the insurers. And then recognize and provide incentives for organization adopting EBAs. I would just like to emphasize this. In the Philippines, we have the non-life insurance is highly taxed by the government. 24.5% of the premium goes to taxes. So that's why a very few insurance companies really goes to this type of high capital outlay, slow return, and high risk. And most often than not, reinsurers really, I don't know, but my experience when I offered this to the different reinsurers, I spoke to two. They said our organization is just crazy in doing this. So I guess these are the support requirements that we need, and hopefully we do together. We believe if we do it together, we can do more, a lot more, for not only for the Philippines, but for our planet, because we only have one. So we don't have any other planet that we can transfer to in case we destroy this totally. So everyone should be part of this initiative, and the cooperatives and the local organization in the Philippines have been doing this silently and with their own resources, together with local government units that are very supportive. But majority of the LGUs in the government, just like as Melinda had mentioned, we have a lot of regulatory framework laws, but the way it would be implemented and the way they coordinate with one another is quite messy as of this time. So I can answer some queries in the next session in the question and answer portion, but these are the 3 slides that I want to present, and it is got and I summarize it the way we do it. So thank you.
So Roy, thank you for those powerful words. And I fully agree that better incentives would definitely go a long way in scaling NBS solutions in the Philippines. Also want to highlight that I believe one CISP is celebrating 50 years in operation, so congratulations on that one. Hopefully we're going to see another 50 years. Great.
We'll work on it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Great. So we are towards the tail end of our discussion today. So we have pretty much wrapped up the slides. At this stage, I want to pivot to the open forum. And the idea is we want all the participants here to either ask questions using the chat feature or come on camera and ask your question. It could be an open-ended question to the group here, or you could also point to any of the speakers or the GIZ team to answer. I know we have about 61 participants today, so I encourage questions so we can spur and think innovatively about the space as a group today. So feel free to ask anything. This is an informal open forum session. I think we have quite a shy bunch today, so maybe I can go first. I actually had a question for Aryan. Aryan, during your presentation, you had mentioned that some of the things AXA Climate is working on is providing consulting and access to more information. How would one, a company in the Philippines, an insurance provider or a cooperative go about getting that information from AXA Climate?
Your question, Melindra, is how can they get some information on our consulting services?
That's one, but more so, are there other resources that we can use to learn more about some of the data or information that AXA may have made public for consumption?
I think the best resources is probably me. So if you are curious and want to know more, I'm very happy to answer and on a follow-up call. So don't hesitate to contact me. Unfortunately, our website is a bit innovative also, let's say, so we don't have much on it. We have a few press releases on the different programs. So if you Google them, you will probably find a press release on Blue Finance, a press release on the Ejido San Crisanto, and on the few projects that I mentioned. But the best, if you have some specific question, yeah, you can write to me and I'd be happy to answer it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And one request to the PIRA team, I'm not able to see the chat box, but if there are any questions that the PIRA team is seeing in the chat box that I'm not able to see, recommend if you can just ask that question on behalf of the person asking. Great. What other questions do team members have? Does the GIZ team have any questions for the speakers or vice versa?
Melindra?
Yeah.
I would just like to ask GIZ. They have been very supportive to the Philippine insurance industry, both life and non-life, in the last 15 years. They have very extensive participation in the microinsurance framework, regulatory framework, and strategy of the Philippines. Are they considering to really put also their resources the way they did 15 years ago to EBA and Adaptive Insurance Solutions in the Philippines? This is the question for GIZ.
Thank you, Sir Roy. I will hand it to the GIZ team to answer that one.
Yeah, maybe I take this for now, and thank you for that question, Roy. Technically, in a sense, no, we have projects now that are both covering the topics of EBA and also insurance, and our project, specifically the E4DR or EBA for disaster resilience, which is operating in the Philippines, specifically Region 8, is the only one, the only project now that combines both topics, meaning EBA and climate risk insurance. So with regard to the commitment, of course, it is there. And at the same time, I want to emphasize that we are a new project, or relatively new. We have been operating for about 2 years now, and we can only hope, no, that there is also greater interest from our commissioning parties in Germany on this topic, so that we can continue. The work that GIZ Philippines has done, for example, on microinsurance, is really a result of a project that, as you know, Dante was involved in for about 15 years. And so that kind of support from GIZ is also only possible from our end if this topic remains, in a sense, a hot topic, no, worldwide, and also from our commissioning parties from Germany. That said, and you will probably have heard this already, in COP28 last year in Dubai, there was an announcement of a commitment for funding on loss and damage with regard to climate change adaptation. And also 2 Decembers ago, there is also the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. No? So in a sense, I think the effort on climate change adaptation, focusing on the one hand, ecosystem-based or nature-based solutions, the interest and the commitment from an international perspective is there. And also at the same time, with regard to really funding loss and damage, that's also quite beginning. So from our end, while the project is ongoing, then definitely we will support this. We will try also to achieve the goal of a framework, regulatory framework for CRI in our project lifetime, and hopefully that can get the ball rolling in terms of more climate risk insurance products and insurance solutions towards nature-based solutions and EBA in the future. That's it from me. Thank you.
Melindra, can I have a follow-up?
Yes, sir. Please do.
During the course of the microinsurance activities in the preparation, GIZ and ADB then were very active in terms of encouraging. I will use the word encouraging the different departments or the different agencies of the Philippines, of the government of the Philippines, to take part and really put their just like to put really resources in terms of the manpower, in their manpower, and then really the top people in the Insurance Commission, Department of Finance, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, CDA, and all these agencies were always present during the discussions or during the technical working group meetings. And it really paid off. I mean, it was painstakingly long, but it really paid off. And right now, Philippines is one of the top microinsurance practitioner in the world. So I guess if GIC can really push the way it pushed microinsurance in the Philippines, I think it can happen and it will happen. There is really a need for someone just that can really push it and really be uh, taking the initiative, because as for our experience, there is, like, in accessing the people support fund, there is a very difficult way of accessing it for climate risk insurance, or more of a soft project rather than hard projects. The people support fund favors hard projects like building dikes, build infrastructure, not really making people resilient, communities resilient, taking initiative. So this is the problem that we have faced since 2014 in terms of accessing the People Support Fund. So I guess GIC can take the lead again, if you can. Just not just like doing it in Region 8. I guess you have to do it on a national scale, just like what you did for microinsurance. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Roy. Appreciate the question. Would love to get a response from somebody in the GIZ team, a brief one, if that's okay, and then we can turn it to the other questions that we have lined up.
I mean, we can
Mit's,
only.
yeah, Mit's hand is also raised kind of a while ago.
Got it.
Yes,
I
Dante,
think
would anybody want to answer first the question of Roy? Then let's go on to the other questions.
Maybe just quickly, I can just only promise that we will try our best not to use GIZ's convening influence with regard to this issue, and of course, working within the framework of our project results. Thank you.
yeah.
And then Milindra,
yes,
just a few words also from my side, because I could imagine what Roy is describing, because we were together in this journey of market development for microinsurance. Indeed, it was a long journey. We don't have maybe the same resources to accompany that for this new market, but it's like of course I remember it's also kind of demand driven. What encourages GIZ to continue the journey, because the whole industry was engaged, and we can still perform that role, and then we can move together, and then even after this project period, which is at the moment focus only in Region 8, but if there is still that interest from the industry, and of course also from the public sector, and always GIZ responds to this market demand, to the demand of other stakeholders, and new project, new funding comes along. And of course, headquarters also has this sector there. Ana Sophia is there, and then we always put together our technical expertise and also some funding from different project sources.
got it. Thank you, Sir Dante. Appreciate the response there. I think there might be an opportunity here to set up a technical working group in the coming weeks as things scale. But I think what's being asked is, like, from your side as well as one CISP side, that there's collective effort needed. We need the support of all the agencies, not just one. Moving on to the next question, I see one in the chat. So the first question is from Shane. Shane wanted to know from Swiss Re and AXA how they're implementing EbA and climate risk insurance literacy campaigns, and how effective have they been?
So I'm happy to provide some piece of answers. Should I go ahead? Yeah.
Yes, please.
So when we work on feasibility studies, targeting often smallholder farmers, there is always a part which is capacity building. But to conduct this efficiently, we have to work with a local consultant, to be able to deliver. So we provide the content, and then it's a local consultant who can gather people and make the training on site, which with an effect that is much more concrete than if we remain, behind our screen 1,000 of kilometers away. Then regarding EBA, from the 3 use cases that we have, the last one that I mentioned with the Mexican community protecting mangroves, we didn't really make some literacy campaign, but we had, I would say, 3 to 4 meetings with the head of the community and an interpreter, because they were only speaking Spanish, we were speaking French and English. And so we really spent time explaining them the parametric design, explaining them the different options. So at the end, they could choose the best options for them. So it was not really properly a training, but it was just, accepting to spend a little bit more time that we usually do to make sure that at the end, the product fits both its purpose and their needs. And this was possible also because we had an intermediary. In this case, it was Climate Seed, the carbon credit broker, who agreed to play this role of intermediary between the community and us. So I don't know if Piyush, you want to add something or?
Yeah, I think I'll echo a lot of what you said. While as Swiss Re will have climate models and hazard models which cover a global perspective, the challenge is always getting that into the grassroots at the local community. So similar to how you shared, we do work with local consultants and then upskilling them on indemnity-based versus parametric insurance and helping them understand what is the most suitable mechanism to help them. So yeah, definitely the local consultants, I think, are key for us.
Thanks, Piyush. Thanks, Aryan. I think that's helpful. I think another opportunity here is, we keep the conversation going with GIZ and see how we can leverage the cooperative network to reach the millions of people who are already covered with some kind of insurance products. And co-ops are a great way to sort of scale capacity building as well. So another great point. We have another question in the chat. I will read it out on behalf of Chris Marquez from 1CISP. I think this is addressed to Aryan as well. Aryan, AXA seems very popular today. Was there a payout or indemnity from the cover? If so, did the proceeds actually go to the marine protected stakeholders, or did it go to the Howden Foundation? That is the pay of the premium. The question is also in the chat, Aryan, if you want to read through it, but that was a question from Chris.
Yeah, of course. So there hasn't been any payout yet, and it's the MPA, the policyholder. So if there is a payout, of course, then we receive directly the money. And Howden, actually, in the pure structuring, if you look at it from on the paper, Howden is not even in the contract because they only, it's the Howden Foundation. They gave a grant actually to Blue Alliance, and Blue Alliance used this grant to pay for the first years of the premium. But on paper, it's only between Blue Alliance and AXA Climate. So yes, they would receive directly the money.
Great, thank you, Aryan. Okay, we're coming close to time. I would love to encourage other participants from the government side or from the co-op side or from the agency side to please ask any questions to either to each other or to the speakers or the GIZ team as well.
Melindra,
Yes.
Mitch's hand is raised.
Oh, please, Sir Mitch, please take it away.
Thank you, Melindra. Well, this is actually for you or for anyone who can answer the question. Now, in one of the slides that you presented earlier, you showed the extent of the policy landscape with links to EBA. Now, is there anyone from the government who is responsible for looking at the big picture and bringing all these various initiatives to a coordinated way forward?
That is a great question and a loaded question for me to answer. But based on the research that we did, and this is my perspective, I didn't see any one agency leading the effort on this. There seems to be some action taken by different agencies. So there different regulators are doing things in their silo, but there's no interagency connections that are happening. So to answer your question shortly, there's no one agency doing it. I think that's another third opportunity for one agency to sort of pave the way and spearhead it. But based on this study, I didn't see that happen. But there's a big opportunity here for agencies to collaborate.
Mitch,
Yeah.
Experience-wise, to share with you, these agencies doesn't know what the other agency is doing. Experience-wise, in Zamboanga City, it's only the ENR who know what's doing. But for the other agencies, they don't know what's happening with the other agency and the other agency. As per our experience. Thank you.
Maybe that's an area where we can focus.
Agreed. I agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm curious if there's anybody from any agencies that might want to address that question and provide a response. Might be very beneficial for us to listen in and potentially collaborate on a discussion post this webinar.
Shane's hand is raised.
Yes, Shane, please.
This is a question for the industry, actually, especially the insurance providers that are here today. We can see AXA having this climate unit, and this allows them to be more proactive in terms of product development. What do you think of having that in your organizations as well? And maybe Aryan could also talk about what do they do in the climate unit? Is it only for product development, but also other things as well? Sorry, Aryan, I know it might be top secret, but just give a general overview of what you do as the climate unit of AXA.
Yes, sure, happy to do so. It's not top secret at all. Our CEO communicates a lot of LinkedIn and he discloses everything, so we will have to find the information between funny stories and historical facts. So AXA Climate, we started 5 years ago, only focusing on parametric insurance for climate disasters. And back in the time, it was a small team, very close to AXA XL, another entity of the AXA group. And we are only doing parametric design. And then we realized that the expertise that was necessary to do parametric insurance, namely science, so we do have a team of scientists, and also data science, because we use a lot of satellite data, satellite imagery, remote sensing data from sensors, etc. So we realized that those expertise can also be super useful to help our clients understand ahead of the disaster what would happen. And this is how we started to work on consulting. So consulting, we do climate and biodiversity modeling. And what does that mean? It means that with our client, we select the right indicator of risk regarding their activity, regarding their locations, of course. And then we project those indicators by 2030, 2050, to help them understand how they should react. And then we work with them on the adaptation strategies to help them reduce their vulnerability. Because we are very much aware that insurance is an interesting tool to transfer the risk, but it doesn't help itself reduce the vulnerability of the clients, right? So this is how also we see consulting as being maybe more proactive in a way, because we help understand, we help prepare for disaster, and then if it's relevant, we can of course insure the residual risk. But for us, what we think today, it's much more important to work on adaptation strategies and mitigation, of course, strategies, than jumping right away in insurance design. So I don't know if this is answering your question, Shane, but this is some inputs.
Thank you, Aryan. And thank you, Shane, for the great question. We are just about at time. So I'd like to kind of stop there just to make sure that we stick to our original schedule and give people some time to also focus on the rest of their Monday. I'd like to conclude by saying, first off, thank you for everyone for joining and being patient with, the long discussion that we've had today. I think we've covered some key points, but there's more to come. Today we understood what is NBS, how it can be scaled, why it's important. But the next question is, what do we do from here? And some of the steps that we identified is that we need interagency support. We need the right incentives in place for us to invest. And the third thing that we need is essentially understanding how do we get access to the resources that have been pledged, and who needs to sort of lead the way, as Sir Mitch put it. So there's more to come. I know the GIZ team will be hard at work over the next couple of years to take the lessons from these discussions and take it forward. So with that, I'd like to invite Sir Mitch to give his closing remarks, and then we can end from there. So Mitch.
Thank you. Thank you, Milendra. To all who accepted our invitation and took time to attend this important event, our heartfelt thank you from us at GIZ and PIRA. A special shout out to the General Insurance Associations of Indonesia and Vietnam, as well as to our colleagues at Global Asia Insurance Partnership and the EbA Network. Now, this topic is timely and close to our hearts, not only in the face of climate change and the fact that natural ecosystems that we rely on for protection and food are fast diminishing, but because our people, not only in the Philippines, but the ASEAN, are negatively impacted by ever-increasing NatCat events. Finding an insurance solution together with other risk mitigating solutions are of prime importance. The United Nations Environment Programme Finance Initiative, or UNEP-FI, in support for its principles for sustainable insurance, has recently called for a membership to a nature-positive technical working group, a multi-stakeholder platform aiming for the advancement of insurance-relevant approaches and the creation of a tailored guidance for the insurance sector on nature. This in turn will support the badly needed capacity on the understanding of the role that insurance can play in addressing the needs of the insuring public. Hopefully, what we have started here can add value to this parallel initiative. Once more, thank you for being part of this long journey, and we hope that you will continue to accompany us. Thank you again.
Great. Thank you so much. And then with that, we will conclude our webinar for today. Like so much put it, this is not the end, but the start. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you,
very much.
everyone.
Have a good day or evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you po.